Good afternoon, Yuval Adler. Welcome on VH Berries.
Good afternoon, Victor. So nice to be here.
I am extremely grateful. How are you doing today in New York City?
It's actually a very nice day in New York City today. It's the beginning. It's not fall yet, but it feels like it's it's not hot. It's very nice, a little chillier than usual, sunny. So I was outside and it's a great day. So not all days in New York are like that, but today is one of those.
It is one of those, Yuval Adler. A perfect match between hot and cold. And I also find that your art is a match between philosophy and filmmaking, a match that is probably as intense as the tennis match that you watched last Saturday between Coco Gauff and Arina Sabalenka.
Exactly. We were trying to talk about the podcast, and then it was during the match, and I couldn't concentrate. I was like, I need to run. I heard people screaming and all that stuff. So yes, it was an amazing match. Everybody's still reeling from it. My path into filmmaking was not straight. Like, I always knew I want to make film, but I actually first had an academic career of sorts. I studied math and physics for many years, and then philosophy, and I'm still engaged in philosophy. Sometimes I teach, sometimes I'm still in sometimes I publish. It's hard for me to articulate exactly the relation between philosophy and film for me, other than the fact that in both of them, there's something about looking and trying to make sense of things, I think, which I don't feel I still did in film. I feel I'm just beginning. I feel I'm just setting up to do my big thing. Like, everything I did, I'm like, oh, that's not it yet. Like, wait, I'm still working on the real thing. You know what I mean? Like, that's just, I'm warming up. I'm just learning the craft, The next one is going to be So I did. In my 20s, I came to New York to do a PhD in philosophy. I did art with one of my professors was an artist named Judy Pfaff, and she kind of introduced me to the art world in New York. And I was in shows, and I did sculpture and video art, and kind of film came after all that in my 30s. And all the things that I did in my 20s, I did, again, math, philosophy, art, they came very easy for me. And then in my 30s, I kind of hit the wall, and I thought, when I started trying to make film, everything was hard, and everything didn't work, and everything was a disaster. I tried to write, I wrote shit scripts, everything. It took me time to understand what I'm doing and how to do things. And then it's funny, because now I'm a writer. Now I wake up in the morning at 6 a.m. every day, or whatever, 5 sometimes, and I write for 4 or 5 hours, and that's the heart of my day. And that's the thing that was hardest for me to learn, to become a writer. So life is funny that way. You're good at certain things go easy, and then the one thing that's kind of hard, that might become what you do in your life. You know what I mean?
Absolutely, Yuval Adler. And this focus that you had for philosophy also, as you just mentioned, applied to a cluster of interests. And in addition of philosophy, you were very good in metaphysics, mathematics, but also calculus, and also, which is very interesting, sculpture. Can you tell us a little bit more about it?
Kind of that was always maybe my virtue and maybe my fatal flaw, that I was kind of good in many things, but maybe not good enough. I don't know yet. I hope I'm good enough. I was kind of bulimically, how should I say it? Like there was, when I was young, again, in my late teens, early 20s, I had this bulimic urge to do everything, to know everything. Somebody said that philosophy is the urge to be at home in the world everywhere. I think it's Novalis or something, some romantic. And the idea is that you want to do everything. Or, you know, you want to, I think Lacan said, you want to be the entire symbolic order for mommy. I don't know what, but you want to do everything. I had that, and I didn't have a focus to say, focus on that. This is what's important. I was like, oh, let's do this, and let's do this. And I'm fascinated by this. And all the things that I did very kind of in a dramatic way in my life. It wasn't like a hobby. You know, when I was a sculptor in my 20s, I was one of the young sculptors that was in shows in New York. But you know what I mean? Like I did it. I was in that world. But it kind of burned out very quickly all the other, like the math thing. You know, I did math seriously for a period, but but it was all kind of like just to, as if like again, there was a bulimia of youth. Like I can eat and do anything. And then it kind of blew in my face in my late 20s and my early 30s that I realized I'm kind of everywhere and nowhere. And then when I started to focus on writing film and trying to write film and get into film, and I didn't know anybody in film, you know, I didn't know anybody because I didn't go to school and, you know, I didn't go to film school. So I didn't know anybody. I was in New York. I didn't know anybody. And it was very, very, very hard. And suddenly everything that was easy in my 20s became a kind of a nightmare in my 30s. And then, but I did go and study acting. That's something that worked, that actually really, I think that taught me writing. Like acting is a very good training for writers because you do what, I'm all over the place here, but whatever. You do what, the same thing kind of actors and writer, you think of things from the perspective of the character. You know, and actually doing scenes. I was studying at the Strasbourg Theatre Institute for a couple of years, doing scenes and whatever. And I wasn't a good actor at all. I didn't let anybody see me act except for the people I did the acting with. But doing scenes really taught me to write, and also later to direct actors because I kind of understood much better their process. So yeah, up to, you know, so my life was like, you know, let's do everything. And then, yeah, at some point you understand that life is finite and you have to concentrate your energy on one thing. And this transition was very painful and it took me time, but eventually, and I still don't feel it's over. Like I'm still in film, I'm still feeling that, you know, not like I'm learning from every film kind of cliche. I'm saying I'm really still learning something about how to make film and trying to understand how to make the film I want to make, which I didn't make yet. All these films that I made are like, it's just warm. It's like, yes, I tried this, but I mean, each one has its own story and I kind of, you know, but I still feel that I'm not who I'm supposed to be. Like I'm still not making the films I'm supposed to make. And it's weird. It's a weird feeling that it's like, it's still a process, you know.
If I understood correctly, Yuval Adler, at the end of the day, you have to pick one card.
Yes.
And this card is probably the ace of spades.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I learned from Nick Cage on Sympathy for the Devil. He came up with this thing. He was like, let me tell you something that happened to me. I was this guy and I was in a parking lot and this guy came to me and he said, pick a card, you know, and he did the same thing. And he said, I knew the card you're going to pick. And he showed him the card. And he said, let's do it. And I liked this idea a lot. I didn't know what it means. I still don't. But it's something that, you know, it's so weird and kind of goes with this kind of performer persona that he adopted for that film. But yeah, I didn't connect it to my life. But yeah, you have to pick a card. And it took me until I was probably 30 or 31 to understand that you have to fucking pick a card. Yes, good point, Victor.
I would love to discuss about that feature film that was released recently and directed by you, a movie called Sympathy for the Devil. Can you tell us a little bit more about it and about the story of that piece of art?
Yeah, this film was it was a great I was very lucky that it happened, but also in some ways I made it happen in a way that's not typical for me or in general. What happened was that after Bethlehem was released in 2013, 10 years ago, there's a period I had a moment in Hollywood where, you know, your agent sent you everywhere and they send you scripts and whatever. And I think in 2014, and I did it for a year or two and then I stopped. In 2014, I read this script and I really liked it, Sympathy for the Devil. It's kind of a simple genre B film, you know, but I saw that there's a possibility for a great performance. And the producers didn't want to let me do, like I pitched it, you know, you get a script and you pitch it. The producer have the script, they have a bunch of directors pitch it to them and then they choose director. They didn't choose me, they choose somebody else in 2014. And I was, and then in 2016 or 17, I remember, you know, you look at IMDb, oh, they didn't make the movie, why not? I sent them an email, what about the movie, are you making it? And they're like, yeah, no, it's the turnaround, we're waiting, blah, blah, blah. And then I asked again in 2019, and again in 2021, and in 2021, they suddenly answered, or even in 2022, they answered, no, 2021, they answered that they lost the right. They lost the right to the screenplay. And I was like, really? How interesting. I was, you know, very happy to hear that. So I immediately called the writer and I convinced him to sell me the right. You know what I mean? Like he sold the right to me directly. Like I kind of convinced him that a director will make the film, that I have a different interest than a producer. Producer more wants to make money. I'm a director. I will make it even for zero budget. You know what I mean? And they gave me a year, and they gave me a year option. And even my manager was like, what can you do with a year option? You know what I mean? Like it takes years to make a film. And I still bought it. It was at the end of the pandemic. It's very strange. I actually paid from my money for a thing. And then my manager, who is like amazing, he actually started putting it together. He got it to some producers, and then something that was very like it. It was some phone call where the producer learned that Joel Kinnaman is available. And Joel, I made a film with him in 2019, and we had a relationship. And he said, "Oh, Joel would love to work with Yuval. Send it over." And then it's the same guy who's Nick's agent. And he said, well, Nick is available, but, you know, let's see if blah, blah, blah. So this whole thing suddenly came together in like 3 months, you know, which is kind of a miracle. Like films take years and years, just like the other producer sat with a film with the same script for 8 years. Okay. And for us, it took 3 months, just because there was a moment where, you know what I mean? Joel was available and Nick was available. And it was amazingly, you know, we had to understand how to do all this LED stuff, how to do the driving. There's a lot of technology we had to learn for this film. Most dramatically was the LED volume. And yeah, it was an amazing experience, because it's like in May of last year, I didn't know I'm shooting a film. And then in July, I was already shooting. It was like that. It was insane.
It happened very fast. This is the sign of a miracle.
Yes.
And this movie has a very deep meaning, because what I've learned is that it's sometimes better to be moving than stationary. For example, it is when the car is stationary that the danger arises in the parking, when they encounter a police officer, and in also other scenes. This can be connected to real life and a lot of philosophy behind it.
Yeah. You know, in this film, it's kind of again, I see it. It's unlike my other films. It's a genre script. Like it's very much, a thriller with, the guy coming from your past, getting into your car, and the two guys kind of working it out. And the process was very much actually hearing the actors, and because Nick was kind of driving the movie, Nick's character is driving the movie. Nick was, his input on the script and the kind of shit that he brought. I mean, the first meeting with Nick that I had, the first call, he said, I spied on you a little bit, and I saw that you have a PhD in philosophy, and I want to tell you that in this film, I want to get metaphysical, I want to get ontological, I want to get, and I was like, yeah, let's do it. And he's like, it's like Milton, it's like the guy is coming from a different realm. And I said, yes, exactly. And I even kind of put some lines of Milton in the script. Like it's even in the trailer. Like he says, better to reign in hell, it's Milton. So it's like we kind of played with, these kind of ideas, and with this idea of, again, within a genre script, Nick's character is kind of a mix between somebody coming from another realm, like some evil entity coming from another realm, and a Vegas entertainer, with the red jacket, and that's kind of those are the two things that kind of we put together, and a lot of it also came from him. Like he's so creative, he has just ideas, like his mind is like, for weeks before production, he just comes up with ideas all the time, and you have to kind of, manage it.
And Yuval Adler, was it a metaphysical choice to name the character without first name? For example, we have the passenger, the driver, and I am sure and convinced that if the car was an actual character credited, you would call it the engine.
Exactly. No, that was in the script already, and I always liked it, that it's like the passenger, the driver, that's it. They're just there, they're just their role. You can say there's something existential about it. Like a person is just their job, their role, what they do. That's who they are. You know what I mean? So this guy is the passenger. That's it. You know what I mean? And I like it. But yeah, there's something very simple about this film, which I really like. This kind of, the past coming for you. Nick's character is kind of a joker, a devil, you know what I mean? But also a man in pain. He's the passenger. This guy is the driver. It's all kind of it's drawn with not a lot of, grays or shades. It's just primary colors, like boom, 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 boom. And I really like that. And also that's how we shot it, if you noticed, you know what I mean? The colors of the film are red, blue, black, you know what I mean? Like that's it. It has very specific looks, you know what I mean? Like night outside Vegas, driving, diner, which is also red, like Nick's hair and the jacket. It's all very primary color-y,
I like it a lot, Yuval Adler. We can also add that we are all one seat away to be whether the driver or the passenger. This is a great metaphor.
Yeah, exactly. I think this idea of your past coming to get you is a deep idea, that something from your past is coming for you. We all have something, and I like that aspect of it.
On one side, Yuval Adler, this feature film is very unique compared to your other pieces of art. But on the other side, I can see some similarities concerning the car, the weapon, attached to another movie called The Secrets We Keep. There is some similarities.
Yeah, I mean, there's actually plot similarities because, you know, it's about a guy that says, you know, it's about identity. It's you, it's you, it's you. No, it's not me, it's not me. You know what I mean? It has that element, right? In both films. Me and Joel were laughing about it. It's like, okay, isn't it? We said, yeah, I told him, yeah, it's the same, but don't worry, we'll do it very different. You know, we'll do it a completely different way. And it's like, and it is a very different movie. And again, the plot for me was, in both of them, like it was, secondary, you know, it was more the themes and the style and the performance. I mean, Secret to Keep for me was about the performance. Like I didn't, you know, it was like I liked, you know, it's like to get the performance from the actors and to work with these actors, and here it was also the actors, but also the style, the themes, the visual, you know, schema that we did there, that kind of stuff.
Probably Yuval Adler, that we never saw the passenger and Maya story in the same room. It can explain a lot of things.
Exactly. Both of them say to Joel, it's you. Nick and Numi, Nicolas Cage and Numi Rapace should come together and both grab Joel and say, it's you! And he's like, it's not me, you know? Absolutely.
And Yuval Adler, you just mentioned before that you bought the actual story and script from a writer. And I feel that you included some of your favorite songs. I am talking, for example, about Fears Become Wishes, a music that is opening the feature film, but also, for example, Without Your Love, a song by Jimmy Radcliffe. Can you tell us a little bit more about those musical inspirations?
Yes, I mean, actually, the soundtrack of this film was a particular obsession of mine. So there's a few things that I never had it with any other film that I had, like, and we had the least money to do anything here. I ended up paying for some stuff myself, but it was like the Fears Become Wishes. It's very interesting. Also, Radcliffe. The way, when you don't have money in a movie, they say, okay, we can't pay for big tracks, right? But here's a pool and they give you 10,000 files of all these and whatever that are cheap, that are like $1,500 they write, or $1,000 or whatever. And they say, you have to pick from those. So I actually found Fears Become Wishes. I never heard of this artist. I heard it in a pool like that. And these songs, you have to understand, mostly they are so generic. They are songs that are horrible. They're manufactured. They're like, and you sit there. I was on a plane from Vegas actually, and I was listening. Okay, no. And suddenly I hear Fears Becomes Wishes. Like, oh my God, this is such a special song, and her voice, and it's like so, you know what I mean? Like I was really impressed by this. Wait, I'm looking, I'm trying to see if I can, no, I can't find it. Anyway, so I liked it so much that we actually opened and closed the film with it, but it's not a song that I knew. It's a song that I found in a pile of 10,000 songs, which is very strange. Also the Jimmy Radcliffe that you're saying. It's one of these songs. He's a great artist, but for some reason, you know, a lot of artists from this era cost $10,000, and he was cheap. I don't know why. And again, it was fantastic. But again, it takes time to find him. Like you have to listen to 10,000 things. And then there's like two other big songs that we actually bought for big money. And one is the opening song, Scott Walker, which is amazing. I love that song. The Old Man's Back Again, you know. The Old Man's Back, you know, and it's like, I love that song. And again, it was a big fight to convince everybody that we need to buy it and to get a price on it and whatever, because Scott Walker is Scott Walker. And then Ellen Vega in the diner, this song that kind of all the action scene at the end of the diner, it's like an 8-minute piece. I bought, again, I knew this song for many years. I always wanted to, Fat City, I always wanted to use it. and I put it there from the beginning of the cut, like the very first cut. I put it there, and it became so much part of the movie that the producers couldn't even the producers who don't want to pay for music, they were like, we can't imagine that part without it. And this song was expensive, you know. So these two songs we bought, and then there's this Israeli artist, Charlie Megira, who does this rockabilly, old, like very Americana style rockabilly guitar type stuff that's very special. We bought one song from that, and then there was the whole saga of getting Nick to dance to Alive the Nightlife, right? Which you saw. That was the whole thing. Nick wanted to. Nick wanted. I mean, we were talking about doing a 17 song. Nick suddenly closed on this song. He was like, "Let's do that one," and it was too expensive. And then he chipped in, and I chipped in, and everybody whatever. And then we bought that. So the whole soundtrack was a whole saga on this film, and I'm very proud of this soundtrack. The songs that you mentioned, the other 2 or 3 that I mentioned, and it's Nick's song for dancing. It was like, it's a great soundtrack. And then we had the composer who did an amazing soundtrack for the film score. That's like very, you know, kind of kooky, kind of weird, kind of not just an action thriller, but like as if getting into Nick's head. You know, again, took time to kind of figure out how to do it, you know. And he's a guy I worked with in another film, Bethlehem, my first film. I worked with him, and he's a musician and a DJ from Israel. Like, he's an Israeli guy. He was in Israel, I was in New York. We worked on it like that, and yeah, a lot of investment in the soundtrack of this film. Absolutely.
Absolutely, Yuval Adler, and the music and the song in particular might be cheap, as you just mentioned, but something that is not cheap and not generic is the immersive cinematic experience that you created in what I can call this box of steel with wheels, with a lot of different scale of footage. Can you tell us a little bit more about the craft and the art of filming this car?
Yeah, that was its own. I mean, first of all, in this film we had like the film is short. It's like 90 minutes, which means it's 85 minutes with titles. So it's 85-minute film, and I think 35 minutes out of it were in the car. So it's like 40% or something. And we decided to do it on an LED volume on a great location stage in Vegas called View, but it's very, I mean, this is new technology, and it's hard to get this kind of thing to work, to wrap the car inside those giant LED screens, and to make it like, and to shoot outside, you know, and plates for what should be projected around the car, and how to get the reflections, and how to cut it with the stuff outside. That was very, very hard, and not a lot of people know. You know, it's like we didn't know how to do it. Me and my DP, we had to learn how to do it. Also, the studio itself is a new studio. It was new to them too. So there was like the month and a half before the shoot, we were like going crazy trying to learn how to use this tool, which is this LED. Again, the LED stage, what's called an LED volume, is a 20-foot wraparound wall, 20-foot high wraparound wall. You know, it's huge. Like, you're like in Times Square, and you put the car in the middle of this thing, and you project the road and whatever they should be, the environment that should be inside, you project it in the LED. And then the light of the LED is so strong that it creates the reflection, and it creates the reflection on their faces, and that's why it looks so real, as opposed to like a green screen where you add the background later and then there's no connection between their faces and the background. Here the background actually lights them, you know. And my DP, Steve Holleran, was amazing. He also added, like, you know, a lot of lights on them. So we really stylized the driving, you know, the effect of being in the car in that studio. Very quickly we learned how to do it for very cheap. We were a low budget film, and it was actually you know, One of the, for me, learning how to work on this LED was one of the things I most cherish about this film. I mean, I think it's a great technology, and there's a lot of stuff. The next film, the next thing I'm writing, I'm actually trying to use also this technology, you know, an LED volume.
The LED volume helped you a lot, Yuval Adler, because it gave a lot of realism to the scenes. But one location that is real is located at 1537 North Boulder Highway in the city of Henderson, in the state of Nevada. I am talking about a gas station.
The gas station or the diner? Which one?
I am talking about the gas station, not the Roadhouse Diner.
How do you know the address of it? That's amazing. Yeah, it's all, I mean, we shot it all where, I mean, we kind of imagine where if somebody took somebody to Boulder City from Vegas, where they would drive, and we actually did the drive. So in Anderson, this is where it should have been. You know, I never knew what the hell Anderson is. Like, you know what I mean? If I went to Vegas, it was Vegas. I never knew the suburbs. I never knew all this. So for me, it was like a whole new world. But like, yeah, we were in that gas station. The Roadhouse Diner was really a rundown place that used to be called the Roadhouse Diner, that we kind of rebuilt as a set, you know, inside. And yeah, there was all kind of, there was something very real about it, which I loved, because I did this film called The Operative about, you know, with Diane Kruger and Martin Freeman, about how the Mossad recruiting a girl, a woman who is not Israeli, who is played by Diane, to go to Tehran. So some of the film was supposedly taking place in Tehran, so we had to build Tehran and fake Tehran, and you know what I mean? Like, and it's so hard to fake a place. But when you actually, also in Bethlehem, I had to fake that I'm here when I'm not there. But here, we didn't have to fake anything. Like everywhere that we were supposed to be, we were. You know what I mean? So it's like you just shoot and it's right. You know, it's such a pleasure.
All of this precedent and all of those knowledge that you learned, Yuval Adler, are now making you ready for a new project and a new feature film. A movie that is adapting a book called the Book of Job that I am having right now next to me. Can you tell us a little bit more about this upcoming project?
Yeah, this is a dream project of mine. I always wanted to make some kind of dramatic, I was obsessed with the Book of Job forever. Also, I even taught a class once when I was teaching philosophy about the metaphysical reading of the Book of Job, whatever that means, like something about, because the Book of Job is fundamentally a metaphysical book about, you know, fundamental questions about the moral order of the universe, the place of man in the world, the relationship between man and God, whatever. So the idea of doing something dramatic with the Book of Job was there all along, and suddenly, and I thought about it, it should be something between a film and theater. But then when I worked on the LED volume stage, I realized it should be on an LED volume stage where it's kind of like theater, like there is a stage, but there is this, you know, LED around it where you can project stuff and make it big, like, you know, in the Metropolitan Opera production. And I'm doing that with a kind of a metafictional approach where it's like you see a group of people making the Book of Job, you know, and at the same time see the actual text and the story of the Book of Job enacted. So it's kind of a, you know, like there was a movie once, French Lieutenant's Wife, if you remember, or French Lieutenant's Woman, I think. Pinter wrote it. It was like, you know, where Meryl Streep and Jeremy Irons, and you saw them in the Victorian era, and you saw them making the film. You know, you cut in between. So I'm doing something like that. Yeah, and I'm trying to actually do it in exactly the same stage in Vegas, you know, with the LED screen. So it's a very challenging, and that's actually a very philosophical film about. It's a film about filmmaking. It's a film about it kind of involves all the themes that the Book of Job touches on. It's a film that deals with ideas in some ways, unlike, you know, this film that was much more visceral. It's very different, but I felt that this film, in a weird way, is opened the gate to the other film. You know,
it is very inspiring to see that some movies opened, as you just said, other doors for upcoming projects, because all of your filmography, the Adler filmography, is strongly connected. And I can feel that this adaptation of the Book of Job took a long time for you to think and write, starting from anxiety and wonder in the Book of Job, which is a talk that you gave at a continental philosophy seminar. And I read that in the last paragraph of that talk, you are concluding by saying that the Book of Job as enacting this movement from anxiety, from the de-wording of Job, from him as the naked that is and has to be. Can you explain the meaning and also discuss about this very specific talk that you gave?
Yeah, that's from the period I told you that I was kind of very interested in the Book of Job intellectually. Like I was teaching it, I was, you know, studying it, I was connecting it. Actually, in that specific talk, what I did was connect it to some aspects of the philosophy of Heidegger, who is kind of the person I'm studying now and I'm interested in now. And the idea is that the Book of Job, the Book of Job starts, if you remember, by God and the Satan speaking and kind of in the divine court and saying, well, you know, there's kind of an anxiety in the divine court. Suddenly God, and not anxiety we're talking about here, but in the quote that you said, but there's a confusion in the divine court. Suddenly God is confused. God and the Satan are confused. They don't understand, they suddenly ask a question that was never asked. Like, why are people good because you make it worthwhile for them to be good? Or are they truly good? Okay, are they good because, I mean, you know, if God is a reward punishment mechanism, then yes, I'll be good because you reward me. But, you know, suddenly the Satan is saying, you know, it's like he tells God, well, you're paying them to be good, but let's see what happens if you stop paying them, you know. So there's a confusion up there, and so they need to do a test. You know, that's what you do when you're confused, you do a test. So this Job is like a book in the genre of let's do tests with the humans. Let's test the humans, right? So they bring these horrible catastrophes on Job, and horrible. Like he loses everything, including his children. His body is, you know, covered with boils. It's like, it's sadistic, you know, what they do to Job, in order to see if he's going to curse. Now, the description of how they take stuff from Job, like they take first his, you know, his cattle and his riches, and then, you know, his home is burnt or whatever, I don't remember. And then the children died. And then his body, you know what I mean? It's like they close in on him, right? And you ask, and then what remains after this with Job? What remains is that part of him that can ask why, okay? That he wants to make sense of it. It's like the thing that Job wants to do is to make sense of what happened. And in that sense, the author of the book of Job says that man, and I mean man in the general anthropos way, you know, but human being, is fundamentally, when you strip everything down, is the thing that makes a person or the human is the attempt to make sense. And that is also what Heidegger says, okay? And Heidegger actually describes in Being and Time a state he calls anxiety, where the world usually we're involved with shit in the world, we're doing stuff, we're absorbed in stuff, we forget ourselves, and then in the state of anxiety, all our projects in the world, according to Heidegger, stop making sense to us. And we kind of become just this thing that is trying to make sense and can't. And this is Job's situation. So my thing was that to say, look, the book of Job is actually kind of a dramatic enactment of Heideggerian anxiety. Just like, for example, you can say that, Oedipus, Freud would say that Oedipus is a dramatic enactment of the Oedipal drama inside the family. Okay? Like in the family, the infant wants to blah, blah, mother, father, blah, blah, right? And in Oedipus, they make it real that he actually kills blah, blah, okay? And the same thing, Job is kind of, and Heidegger also has this idea that, anxiety is important because this deworlding that happens to you in anxiety, that the world stops making sense to you, is actually where you get that sense of wonder, where that is the beginning of philosophy and thinking, that you wonder that things are what they are. Okay, there's something that this anxiety, this existential anxiety that he talks about, is a crucial, a fundamental kind of attunement, a mood that shows you how the world, that reveals to you the world as wondrous. It's like how as opposed to just like being absorbed in it and not noticing it. So, and in the book of Job, you have, if you take this experiment that God and the Satan do with Job, this kind of this aggressive, literal deworlding, that they take everything he has and bring him into this naked person that's trying to make sense, then what happens at the end is the theophany, the so-called theophany, meaning the appearance of God, where God talks to him about the wonder of the world. So in Job, there's this movement between anxiety, a metaphor for anxiety, and wonder, and also that's kind of the fundamental Heideggerian movement. So I was like, that was my lecture. I was like, look, Heidegger is doing exactly what Job was enacting in this story. He's kind of connecting this deworlding of anxiety with wonder. That was my talk. If you want it in like 4 minutes, I don't know how long it took.
I am looking forward to see that adaptation of the book of Job, and I truly feel that this is going to be an intense match between those two layers of narration, between the present moment and also telling the story in the past as it is written, a match as powerful as the one between Coco Gauff and Arina Sabalenka.
Right.
Thank you very much, Yuval Adler.
Thank you so much, Victor. That was so much fun. I really appreciate it.